everyone, welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack video series. My name is Molly Hollova. I'm going to be doing a lesson with you guys today that is part of our Project Pack number 1. I have a few tools here that are from my Project Pack number 1. I have 3 white Jelly Roll pens in sizes 05, 08, and 10. I also have a white charcoal pencil. I have a tortillon that I'm planning on using just for my white charcoal, so if you noticed I marked it here, you may want to mark it too so it doesn't get messed up with any other tortillon. I also have a white charcoal pencil. I have a tortillon that I'm planning on using just for my white charcoal, so if you noticed I marked it here, you may want to mark it too so it doesn't get messed up with any other tortillons you might have. And I also grabbed a graphite pencil. This wasn't part of the project pack, but if you have one lying around somewhere, grab it just in case we might use it too. If you don't have these tools, don't worry about it. You can grab what you do have and use those for today and follow along just the same. So let's enjoy this lesson no matter what. I also have a black apprentice tile here. This is what I'm going to be working on today. It's a 4.5 by 4.5 inch tile with a nice smooth black surface, and it works really well with these gel pens. A few things before we get started. I'm going to talk about the pens for a second. Because they have this really nice, beautiful, thick ink that comes out and sits upon the paper like just beautifully, there is a little bit of a dry time. So just be aware of that as you're drawing, not to maybe rub your hand over it because it might smear, or even flip your tile over while it's still wet and then it would smudge on the table. So just be aware of that as we're drawing. Before I start any black tile, a lot of times I will turn my tile over the back, and just test out my pens a little bit just to get a feel for how they work on this particular surface. Sometimes the ink just needs a little help getting started in the pen. So it's a great place to kind of do that. So if you want to do that with all your pens now, just to see how they work, now is a good time to do that. Just remember before you flip it back over to wait for them to dry. So I have kind of a fun tile I'm going to be doing with you all today, and it's going to start off with a tangle called Crazy Huggins. And Crazy Huggins is a tangulation of regular Huggins, really fun, almost like a basket weave style pattern, I guess. And we kind of laugh, but every pattern that my mom gets a hold of, she sort of turns into I guess a crazy version. So a lot of these tangles have these great tangulations that are a little more organic. They have a little bit more variation in them. They are not so symmetrical. They're not so metered out. And this is a great example of one of those. Huggins in general is a little bit of a challenging tangle, so I want you all to be patient with yourselves. Just enjoy the process and enjoy this as part of your journey. So just know that this is a little bit challenging, and if you at all get frustrated, just take it slow. At any point in time in this video, if you want to press pause, feel free to do that. This video is designed to do that. I'm going to start off using my Jelly Roll 10 here. This is a real fat, bold tip, and it's a brand new pen, and I've just been really enjoying using it. The ink really comes out thick, and you can really get a real white line that sits on top of the paper. Pretty fun. I would kind of experiment with a really light touch and see how nicely that ink just flows out. Versus pressing really hard, because the lighter touch you have, the more ink that's going to come out. I want to show you guys the elemental strokes in Crazy Huggins before we get started, and I'm going to show you that on the back of the tile. So Huggins is made up of 2 elemental strokes. We're going to use an orb, just like that, and we're going to use a C curve, just like that. Sometimes it's going to be in that way, and sometimes it's going to be that way. So those are the 3 strokes we're going to be using. And we're going to combine that with a technique that we use in Zentangle quite often, and that technique is called takeoff and land. And I'm going to show you an example of how it's going to work here. So say, for instance, we have two orbs kind of far away from each other. And I want to connect them using this C curve here. And the way I'm going to do that elegantly, so one stroke kind of blends into the next, is I'm going to trace over this orb a little bit, take off, and then land on the other orb, tracing that one a little bit. And this is a great way to elegantly watch one stroke sort of blend into another. So that's what Huggins is going to have of a lot of this combination here. So I'm going to do it one more time for you, going in the other direction. Two orbs. And I'm going to draw that beautiful C curve, tracing over, taking off, and landing. So we're going to get started with Crazy Huggins. And I think that I'm just going to kind of freeform this a little bit. We're not going to put down a string. We're actually just going to begin with our Jelly Roll 10 here, a nice fat bold line. And I want you to allow your Crazy Huggins to sort of morph as we go along. So it may not end up looking exactly like mine, but we're going to try to let it sort of sprawl over the tile. Maybe it cascades from one end to the other. Maybe it starts in the middle and goes out. No planning needed here. We're just going to see what happens. Traditionally, when we teach Huggins, we'll put out a series of orbs and then we'll connect them with that beautiful C curve. I'm going to give it a little bit of a different approach today, and I'm going to show you guys a way to do Huggins sort of piece by piece. And there's no wrong or right way to do it. It's just another approach. So follow along with me, and hopefully if this is your first time, you enjoy Huggins. But also I want to say this is a challenging tangle, so give yourself a little bit of slack as you're learning this. It may evolve as you go along with your practice. So we're going to start with some orbs, and I'm just going to begin somewhere in the center of this tile, no place in particular. And I'm going to start with putting down some orbs that are sort of in a square fashion. So just bear with me here for a minute as you see what I mean. And these orbs are give or take the size of a pea. And I'm laying them out so they form sort of like a square here, okay? And I'm working pretty big because my intention after this is to draw some more tangles inside my Huggins and sort of use this Crazy Huggins as a string. So I encourage you to also draw big so you can follow along afterwards as well. I'm now going to connect these four orbs in a Huggins fashion and use that sort of as our template to move forward. So I'm going to use a C curve to connect these two orbs and these two orbs. So I'm going to start right here, taking off and landing and putting a C curve down on the right side of these two orbs. Now, the trick with Huggins is that the C curves are never going the same direction next to each other. So what I mean by that is this C curve here is on the right side of my orbs, so this C curve would not also be on the right side of the orbs because it's right next to it. It's always going to be on the opposite. So I'm going to take off here and land down here to put this on the left side of those orbs. So in order to make my whole Huggins shape, I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to try to close up the shape by connecting these two orbs and these two orbs. I need to put a C curve down to do that. And another thing with Huggins that you want to remember is that your lines will never cross. They'll never cross in this tangle. So I know that I'm not going to go this way. So my C curve is going to go over here, land right on that orb. And then over here, let's see, since this one's on the right side, this one must go on the left side. All right, so we have our basic Huggins shape here. This is the repetitive shape that's going to happen. We're going to work with 4 orbs, and we're going to work with these C curves to create a shape like this. So now we're going to work along by connecting each of these shapes. And I'm always just going to add enough orbs to find myself with 4 to work with. So right here I have 2, so I'm going to add 2 more. And I'm going to be kind of silly with the size of them just to add that kind of whimsical effect. Now I need to add my C shapes here. I don't think it's going to go this side because this is the same side as that one, and we said 2 next to each other would never be going in the same direction, and I would cross over a line, so it must go over here. And it's always a C curve and landing. Over here, let's see what's going on. This one's on this side, so this one probably won't be on that side. And then same thing over here, that one's on that side, so it must go over here. This may take a minute for your brain to start seeing this, so don't get frustrated. Just take your time. Feel free to pause the video, go back, watch it again, and really just get a feel for how this tangle works. All right, so we got 2 Huggins shapes connected there. I'm going to add some more orbs here to make another foursome. So I'm going to work with these 2 orbs here. I'm going to make a really big orb just for fun. And then I'm going to make one kind of flying out here a little bit. So you can play with the distance apart, the size of the orb, and that'll make it have a little bit more life and movement. So let's see where I'm going to draw my C curve. I don't think it's going to be over here because that's going to make me cross lines. It must go over here. And again, it's just a gentle C. A lot of times I might draw my line in the air first so I know where I'm going. Then I can kind of visualize if that's going to be right or not. I might draw it in the air over here and be like, no, I don't think that's what we want. So I'm going to go over here and finalize that line. Turn my tile, see where we're at, continue on. I'm going to do one more for you guys here, and then I'm going to set you off to finish your crazy Huggins on the first part of this tile here. So this is interesting. I already have 3, so it looks like I only have to add 1 more. I'm going to add one right here. So now I have 4 orbs. I'm going to make my C curve right here. Turn my tile to kind of look at where I'm at. This one's on this side. I see that one's on that side. So this must go over here. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way my Huggins has turned out here. If you haven't finished laying yours down, that's fine. Just pause the video and you can join us in a minute. I'm going to add another step to my Huggins here to kind of define its shape a little bit. And we often use auras to sort of add another kind of detail to a tangle. And I'm going to do that here as well. I'm still working with my 10 here, and I'm going to simply aura all of those beautiful C curves that I've drawn on the inside of the shape. Okay? So what I mean by that is I'm just going to simply draw an aura that's pretty close to that original C curve line that does something like that. And this is just a nice detail to define that Huggins shape. So I'm going to go along, I'm going to add that C curve to all of my Huggins shapes. Okay, so I've added all those auras inside my Huggins shapes, and I just love adding that little detail because I think it really adds to the structure of the pattern. So this is pretty fun. I'm excited about what I have so far. And now I'm going to add another tangle to sort of add to the composition. So I'm going to use two different tangles inside my Huggins. I'm going to play with some in these Huggins that are kind of going one direction, and then I'm going to play with another tangle in these Huggins that seem to be going in another direction. If yours end up being kind of all over the place, I don't think it really matters. I'm just figuring out a way to fill some with one tangle and fill some with another tangle. And it looks like I forgot one of my Huggins here. So I'm gonna add my auras right here. Just notice that as we were drawing. All right, I think that's all of them. And if I missed one, that's okay. So the next series of tangles, I'm going to be using my Jelly Roll 05, which is a super fine tip. And this is a kind of a fun juxtaposition to the fatness of the big tangle. So we'll have some kind of variation here. The tangle I'm going to be doing first is Shattuck. And I'm going to sort of have my Shattuck fill in this shape right here. Shattuck to me reminds me almost of bamboo or something. And I'm gonna start off doing my Shattuck by drawing a diagonal line with my fine tip pen right there. You might watch for a minute to see how this is gonna pan out for the first couple steps. Once I have that first diagonal line, I'm gonna draw a series of auras, parallel auras, filling all the way up. I'm going to turn my tile a little bit, and now I'm going to draw a diagonal line going in the other direction that meets the bottom line right here, okay? You notice I put a little slight curve in mine. I just like the character of that. You could do yours straight if you want, but I think a little curve is nice. All right, I'm going to need another diagonal line that meets the bottom of that one I just drew. And then follow it up with nice parallel auras. Turn your tile, draw another diagonal line meeting that bottom line there. It's just a series of auras to fill that space you just created. Just take your time and breathe. And then I'm going to kind of guess where this one might have been. It's going to follow up, and I think it would be going something like this. So I'm just sort of guessing. That might be pretty close. So that's Shattuck right there. I'm going to continue to fill just the Huggins that seem to be kind of going tall this direction, and then we're going to start our other tangle. Okay, so I have filled as many of these as I want to with my Shattuck, and please feel free to go back and watch how I did that again as many times as you need to, and then take as much time as you need to fill these spaces with your Shattuck. I'm going to move on to doing another tangle in the other spaces called Crazy and Zeppel. And this is going to be a nice way to kind of balance off these fine lines with a little bit of a different style tangle. Crazy and Zeppel is the crazy version of a tangle we have called Zeppel. And regular Zeppel works with a very, I guess, basic grid. And Crazy and Zeppel works with a more kind of erratic grid. And I just like to start off laying out my Crazy and Zeppel with sort of random lines that stretch through the section that I'm going to be working on. And there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to what I'm doing, and feel free to just watch first and then see how this is going to play out. But what I'm trying to do is break up my section into these little shapes that I can then do the next step in. So I'm about finished here. And again, you may want to just wait a second to see what the next step is in order to make your own grid. All right, I think I'm pretty good there. So it's sort of just a overlapping of lines to break it down into these sort of polygon shapes. There's some triangles and hexagons and stuff like that, and that's gonna be what we're gonna fill. So the next step is to smush an orb into that space. And that may sound kind of funny because it is kind of a funny thing. But what we're gonna do is try to imagine as if we had an orb or a ball that was a little bit bigger than our space, and I was going to smush it into all of these little areas. So the way I'm going to do that is trace the straightaway, cut the corner, trace the straightaway, and cut the corner. So let's zoom in a little bit maybe so you can see that a little better. So let's pick another space right here, and again I'm gonna try to fit an orb in there. But what happens is the orb becomes kind of misshapen at the same time, and that's what you want. You don't want to just throw a circle in there. You want to take your time and watch the orb kind of get smushed by the shape, okay? And you really have to draw the full shape in order to get that effect. I love this tangle. I think it's kind of unexpected. And working in here with your fine pen is kind of fun as a textural detail. So just looking at every one of these little spaces and then just smushing that orb in there. So it's almost mimicking the shape that it's in, except it doesn't quite fit in the corners. So really take your time as you go along, because you don't want to end up with a bunch of circles that look like you drew them really quickly. Instead, these beautiful, deliberate orbs that gracefully fit into all of these shapes. Super snug, like as if they're not going to fall out once you got them in there. All right, so that's Crazy and Zeppel. It has a really cool effect. And I recommend just leaving this right here. There might be an urge to color it in, but I think that that adds to the way that this tangle looks. So just leave it there and see if you can appreciate it as it is, because it has this great texture. I'm gonna go ahead and finish filling my Zeppel in all of these leftover spaces. Okay, so I have added in all my Crazy and Zeppel in here. I've added in all my Shattuck, and I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. I'm thinking that it's time to add a little bit of shading and highlight. So I do think I'm going to use my graphite pencil here because I think that I can create a little bit more depth and a little bit more of that kind of weaving effect. And then I'm gonna combine it with some charcoal. We'll see what happens. I think this will be fun. When I'm working with the graphite on the black tile, I sometimes feel like I don't even need a tortillon. I sort of use the graphite as the tortillon. I almost will just lighten up and kind of blend it as I go. So what I mean by that is I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow just at the top of this Huggins shape right underneath all of my C curves to create a little bit of that effect that maybe it looks like it's weaving through. I think it's gonna work and I think it'll be kind of nice. So let's give it a whirl. I'm gonna just put a little bit of darkness down right underneath that C curve, just a little bit of a shadow. And like I said before, I sort of do it dark first, and then as it gradually comes closer to the center, I just lighten up on it. So a nice dark line and then kind of lighten up on it. And it changes the way the gel pen looks. If you're not a fan of shading, you can definitely skip this step. I love shading. It's sort of when my tangles come alive. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that dark line down on the inside of all of these C curves here, all the way around. Okay, so I have put all kinds of graphite all over here, and I'm pretty heavy-handed with the graphite. Feel free to go easier with it if you like, but it's part of the process that I enjoy. I like watching the white get a little gray here and there. If you have a tortillon for your graphite and you want to blend that in a little bit, you can. I sort of played with just using the pencil itself, but either way is fine. Now I'm going to put down some white charcoal, and I am going to use that tortillon I have that was made just for my white. Again, I like to label it so that I know which one is which. And I'm just going to add some highlights right in the center here, and I'm gonna sort of lay down the charcoal really heavy right in the middle, just like that. Blow off any excess. And then I'm gonna use the white charcoal tortillon to kind of blend it towards my graphite. So you can see I am creating something very different than what we started with, but I love this kind of ominous look it gives it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on all of them. Okay, I have all my white charcoal laid down. I am more than thrilled with how this is turning out, and I think that I'm actually going to stop right here. You're totally welcome to go back in and add some more details, maybe put a white dot inside these orbs, maybe add some tangle enhancers around the edge or another tangle here and there. Do whatever is going to make your tile come to its finished state. And I'm going to do my last little step here, which is going to be sign my tile. So I want to thank you guys for tangling along with me today. It's been super fun. This is only one way you can tangle on a black tile. There were so many fun ways to do it. We explored using different pen weights. We played with using tangle as a string. We added in the graphite to blend with the white charcoal, and I think we came out with something pretty cool. Have fun with this, you guys.